Hi guys. So today I'm gonna do my February wrap up and my March TBR. So I know this is coming a little bit late because we're like a week into March, but whatever. Um, so let's go ahead and get started with the books I read in February. So I actually only own physical copies of two of the books that I'll be reading, that I read in February. So I'll start with those. So the first book that I read in February, well, the first book that I'm going to talk about that I read in February was The Man Within by Laura Lee. This is the original cover, the lowercase cover. So like I know she has new covers now, but I already owned most of them in this cover, so I just already had it. And this one is about Tabor and Ronnie. Tabor? Or is it? Yeah. Okay. So, basically, this is book issue in the feline breed part of the breed series. And, basically, breeds are a group of genetically altered humans who their DNA was crossed with animal DNA, and because of that, they have certain animal characteristics. Like they don't look like animals, they look like normal people, but they have heightened senses of sight and hearing and smell and agility. They have really good agility and that kind of thing. So, Tabor is the breed in this story, and Tabor and Ronnie have known each other most of Ronnie's life. He kind of found her in the middle of the woods and saved her and took her home, and from there, their relationship kind of persisted, and then one day they decided to take their relationship to the next level, and instead of showing up, he never showed up, and it's been 3 years, I think 3 years since then, and she has been found to be his mate, which she kind of always thought that was the case because he had bitten her when they were being intimate, and from there she had kind of started to develop odd symptoms, but he never knew, and so he left because he thought she didn't want him, and she didn't talk to him anymore because she thought he just didn't want her, and so their story kind of goes from there, and you find out a lot about Ronnie's life and how many secrets her parents were keeping from her. So that's this one. And then the next book that I own in print that I read in February was Finder Volume 10. So basically, Finder is a manga series. Basically, it's about Akihito, who's the young journalist, and Asami, who's the mafia boss, and their kind of love story with each other. So this one, basically, they find themselves stranded on a deserted island after their plane crashes, and they have to figure out how to get home and survive on this island at the same time. So the next book that I read in February was I read Fortuna Sworn by KJ Sutton. And Fortuna Sworn is about a girl named Fortuna, and she has the ability to make people see their worst nightmares. And the story starts off with Fortuna, who is looking for her brother that has gone missing, I think 2 years before he went missing, and she has been unable to find him, and she's kind of been left with all this guilt because her parents were murdered and she was responsible for her brother. She was supposed to take care of him, and now he's gone missing, and she's determined to find him, and she kind of encounters this fairy who tells her that he knows where her brother is, but she has to do something for him before he will show her where her brother is. So it kind of takes a turn from there because you kind of enter his world, and you see the Fae world from a different perspective of how they've survived, how they treat humans, because it's very harsh and cruel, and how little they value human life. And then you also see for Tuna, who has lived her whole life among humans, that's all she knows, and she treats them as her friends, her family. So it's kind of her up against the system of what they've always done and what they've always believed in the society. And it's very interesting. And Fortuna is definitely a strong character, and she's very determined, and she kind of doesn't care who gets in her way. And I can't wait to continue with the series. So the next books I read were by the same author, and they were, I think it's called the Hades and Persephone series. And I read A Touch of Darkness and A Touch of Ruin by Scarlett St. Clair. It's about Hades and Persephone. And Persephone has grown up with the idea that she's not strong. Every time she tries to use her power, it tends to backfire on her, and not in a very good way. And she can't really control her powers. And here comes Hades, and he kind of kidnaps her and makes a deal with her that if she can create life in the underworld, then he will set her free. But if she can't, then she has to stay there forever. And the story kind of takes a turn from there, because obviously, you know, Hades and Persephone, they fall in love and they end up together in the end. But there's a lot of different layers to that, and like you see a lot of her mother, Demeter, who doesn't really want them together, doesn't agree with that kind of relationship, I guess you would call it. And you also see a little bit into Persephone's life and her friends, and how she's lived this normal kind of human life her whole life because she can't use her powers, and then all of a sudden here she is and she has to. And you have these people in the underworld who look at her and they start to see her as their queen because she's doing all these nice things for them. It's really good. I loved it. I'm waiting for the next book to come out. I'm so excited. So there's that one. Okay, so the next book I read in the month of February was Filthy Rich by Serena Ackroyd. And Filthy Rich is a mafia story, and so Filthy Rich is about a guy named, I called him Ewan, but in the beginning of the book she like puts pronunciation, and his name I think is Owen, she says, but I always say Ewan, it's whatever. But it's about Owen and Anessa, and Owen has never wanted to get married. He is one of the 5 brothers, I think it is, of the 5 points. He is basically like their assassin, and he is okay with that. He is fine with his life, but his father has kind of ordered him, you have no choice, you have to marry this girl. I don't really care what you say. So he ends up betrothed to Anessa, and Anessa's father is I'm trying to think, because it's the Russians and the Italian. No, not Russian and Italian. Russian and Scottish, Irish. There we go. The Russians and the Irish. So he's part of the Irish and she's part of the Russian. There we go. Okay, we got it together. So in the Bratva, the Russian mob, women are treated very poorly, whereas for him in the Irish Mafia, whatever, women are cherished. They're kind of like, they're treated like queens. They're like pampered. They take care of them very well, whereas her father, Anessa's father, is beating her. And he's beating her and her sisters. Her mom has died, and it's just them and his wife, his new wife. And they're beating the daughters. So that's the only life she's ever known, is to be a very submissive wife, very meek, very mild. That's what she's always been taught. So when she is told she has to marry Owen, I'm just gonna call him Ewan because that's pretty much what I called him in my mind. It's gonna stick. So when she's told she has to marry Ewan, she kind of sticks with that, and she fights it a little bit, which is kind of why her father ends up beating her really bad on their wedding day, or right before their wedding day. But she kind of chooses when to fight her battles. So basically they go, it's their wedding day, it's the first time they're meeting because he's kind of avoided it, and when he really sees her, he sees someone has beaten her, and in the end she ends up telling him her father beat her, and because she told him that she didn't want to get married. And so he ends up beating up her father, and the story kind of goes on from there, because it's basically about him showing her that he's very different from pretty much everything that she knew and everything that she grew up as, and him and his family are nothing like that, and it's her coming out of her shell and learning to trust him and trust that he's going to take care of her. It's a really sweet story. It's kind of heartwarming in a sense, because you have this really brutal guy and he kind of like melts for her, and it's really cute. It kind of hurt my heart a little bit, not in a bad way, in a really good way. So there's that. And then, so the next books I read were The Obsession and The Deception, which were books 2 and 3 in the Initiation series by Nikki Sloan. So I can't really tell you what the other 2 books are about, but basically the Initiation series is about a girl named Maris who has grown up her whole life wealthy, or she thinks she's wealthy, and this town that they live in, even though it's a town of well-off people, they all look up to this one family, the Royce family, or not the Royce family, the Hale family, and this family basically runs the town, or not the family, the father runs the town, and her sister ends up in a situation, I don't want to give it away, but her sister ends up in this situation, and so her sister was supposed to marry the oldest Hale son, Royce, but because of her situation she can't, and so Maris is set up to marry Royce, and it's basically her initiation into this family, and they have a very interesting form of initiation. This series overall is definitely one of my favorite series ever. It was so many twists and turns. It definitely kept you on the edge of your seat. Like, honestly, I found myself like sitting there talking to the story like it was going to talk back to me, and it obviously wasn't, but that's how you know when it's a good story, when you're like, no, they didn't. Oh my gosh, this is gonna happen. Like, I love that in a story, and that was definitely happening here. And you just kind of see how strong Maris is, because she kind of like takes the hits and keeps on going, and it's so good. I can't say anything else about that, but it's so good. You have to pick it up, and you won't be able to stop with the first one. You will have to binge it. I'm already saying it now. It is bingey. So the last book that I read, or manga I read in February, was My Little Inferno. Now this I read because I saw something think it was either on Twitter, on Instagram, or whatever, and somebody was talking about this book, and so you can't get it in print, or I don't think you can. I read it online, but they basically were saying how it was very odd and like problematic, and I tend to read problematic books a lot of the time, so I thought I'd pick it up. And I don't know how I feel about this book. I don't even know. Let me check, see what I rated it. I rated it a 3-star, and it wasn't, I don't want to say it wasn't bad because it wasn't necessarily good either. So basically I'll explain. So the story starts off, I don't even remember their names, with this guy, and he is going home, and he ends up being accosted by this older man who basically breaks into his home and rapes him. I don't know how else to say it other than that. I don't think there's really any other way to say it. And from there, he wakes up, and this man is staying in his home, and he's taking his money, and they're living together. I don't know how else to put that. So they kind of begin this odd situation because this man who finds a stranger in his home, he goes to the police. The police don't do anything because they can't find the man, and it kind of goes on from there to where this man, he's manipulative, but not. It's so weird where, in a sense, in his mind, he's doing the right thing. It kind of makes me think of, what is that? Like You on Netflix. Like, in his mind, he's doing something completely normal. I saw this guy, I like this guy, I slept with this guy, and now we live together and we're in a relationship. That's what's going on in his mind. And in this other guy's mind, who all this is happening to, he's like, I don't really understand this. I don't hate it, but I don't love it. It's weird. I'm not sure where I'm going with this, but as I read on into the story, I don't necessarily agree with some of the things that are going on, but then it also has a really interesting storyline too, to where I couldn't put it down because this guy is not like, he ends up paying the man he stole from back, the one that he's staying with, he ends up paying him back plus interest, and you don't really know where he got this money from, but he just comes home with a bag full of money and says, here's all your money back. So and you end up finding out that he is not what he seems, and he's kind of on the run. It's interesting, but I don't think it would be for everybody. And I think if I wasn't someone who was so, I don't want to say open-minded because that's not the right way to say it, but so open to not weird, but like out of the box things, I don't think I would have liked this as much. Does that make sense? I hope it does. But anyway, so that's all the books I read in February. Thank you for watching so much, and subscribe if you want to, and I will see you in my next video. Bye guys.